We were describing a little bit about worship and life in the church in those regions. You were mentioning between the breaks that there are as many as 5 choirs in a
The,
large congregation.
the congregation had about 5 choirs and a children's choir, um, 4 adult choirs, a youth choir also, so about a total of 6. And they sing throughout the various services. The interesting thing for me is that after church, the people don't greet the pastor at the door, but you go out to the singing of the choir who's out in the front yard singing to you as you leave prior to the auction out front.
Oh, okay. And the auction would be for those that bring offerings that are not monetary offerings that then would become uh, transformed, so to speak, into the monetary uh, resources that would be used on the church on a regular basis.
Correct. Some people brought soap, some brought vegetables that they had maybe raised at home. The most interesting one to me was at the end of the third offering, someone brought up a bag, and I took the bag just like you get at the Shop and Save or whatever,
Mhm.
and I took it, and the thing started flopping around. And they had brought a live chicken
Oh,
to
my.
auction off afterwards, and they had to put him on the altar to bless. And the chicken actually got away, so I had to chase it. We had to put it back in the bag, and I had
Oh,
to hold
my.
it the rest of the service. And then they auctioned it off at the end of the service. So,
So people will bring what they have, what gifts they can to bring.
correct. Yeah.
What would you say, how would you describe the role of children in the church as you were able to observe it?
Children have a very prominent role. Their music ministry, but also that's where a lot of their education takes place. They're unable to afford to go to secondary school, for example, so the church becomes their location where they learn morals, they learn how to live, um, learn a little bit of a hygiene, issues that they have to deal with.
Mm.
Also, it's just a sense of worth. They live in such poverty that the youth go there, finding that their hope is in Jesus Christ and simply awaiting his return
Mm.
to get them out of their poverty.
That's got to be a very daunting way to look at the world. But I think that's one of the things the church has often brought to people many times and places is that sense of hope and a word of promise in
Absolutely.
very difficult situations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it carries on through those, even beyond the youth and the children. But the average age expectancy of the females when I was there was only 52,
I
and the
see.
men was only about 50 years old.
Hmm.
And so that is their only hope. And the poverty, because of the lack of education, and the poverty is so deep that they find that there's nothing really that can change them
Hmm.
except for Jesus Christ's return.
Hmm. Um, s- for folks who might have some income of some sort, would it be agricultural work or work actually finding some sort of a job in the city, or is there little hope for that kind of a life at all?
Some of them are clerks in the local stores. Others at the church where we went at Forest Lutheran, the head of the Lutheran Teachers College was a member there. So you had some of the teachers,
Uh-huh.
some of the directors are there. We had a doctor who was there, and we also had an individual who was not a member, but he was the vice president of the country at that point.
Oh
So when
my.
he would come to the area, he would always worship at the companion congregation,
Hmm.
which he did when I was there.
When you arrived, had there been much previous conversation or relationship between the church in the United States and that congregation, or was this kind of the beginning of really establishing the relationship?
We had already been in communication through letters, through the diocese over there, but also direct letters. And also, prior to my coming, they sent over shirts that they had made for me
Ah,
from there. And also, they had sent over, just in case my wife was coming, which she didn't, but just in case, they sent over some material for her to wrap around her
I
because
see.
of the length of dresses that the women's dresses have to be. They have to go down to the ankles. Women weren't allowed slacks. They had to wear dresses. And they also sent over some guidelines basically for reminding women that when they go, they curtsy and different directions the way that we should respond while we're over there. I think the other component that was amazing to me is the amount of love which they have is overwhelming.
Mm.
They instantly fall in love with you. And the parishioners instantly would come over and hold your hand and walk you wherever you wanted to go. And it, it was just an overwhelming outpouring of love.
So that sense of hospitality and welcoming was very real.
It was when we pulled up to the church and I got out of my car, one of their choirs was there singing to greet me.
Mm.
I went in the house, they had a cake, which we were told we can't eat because it had milk in it, but they had a cake there, they had drinks ready for us, and were ready to just welcome us with arms open wide.
Mm-hmm.
They're eager to give gifts. The youth, you had asked about the youth, had made some gifts that they had ready for me when I was there. They made a picture that they had for, and it was made by members of the youth group.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have
hand carved.
hand carved the whole way through.
Very good.
And this one as well, it was for the sugar, and also they have one for the salt. And then let's come off. And this was from the women's organization, and it's from a banana tree.
Ah.
And they make things like this to sell at local fairs and at the downtown area in order to try to raise funds for the church.
Mm-hmm. Particularly from third world countries, the handmade items often seem to be most prevalent.
Absolutely. This figure with Christ, was a farewell gift from the congregation then to me as well. And someone in the parish had made this one to send over to our family.
Mm-hmm. So when you make this kind of a trip, meeting people from faraway lands and at the same time sharing the common faith, it becomes an opportunity both to share from our direction to theirs as you go, but also to share and interpret the mission when you come back. What kinds of stories do you find most helpful to share as you come back and talk about the trip that you made, John?
I would say, first and foremost, the deep faith which they have in the congregations, in the diocese. Also, just stories of life over there in general. The amount of insects crawling around in the area where you sleep, or sleeping and seeing lizards coming out of the wall. I had to sleep in netting the whole time, so I used to put my bed in the middle of the room, or seeing extremely large spiders, which I wasn't used to. But I think the extreme poverty, which I would see even at the Lutheran hospital, for example, where the area where they would do the laundry is if you were in the hospital and I came to visit you, I would be the one responsible to do your laundry. And it's a big barrel of open fire with just a stick. Okay. And I would have to do all the bed linens, your laundry, etc. So just the poverty is overwhelming.
Certainly a very dramatic contrast to what we're used to in our standard of living. John, we do have to take a short break and come back for our final segment in just a few seconds. We'll be right back.